It was snowing inside Rose's bedchamber. The chill woke her, the draught of wintry air biting at her nose and setting her toes a-tingle, rousing her from a fitful sleep. She struggled onto her elbows and peeked over the edge of the coverlet. Muted morning light filtered through the thin draperies, catching the pale gleam of downy snowflakes swirling through a jagged fissure in the window. The snowflakes were pretty, but alas, it wouldn't do. A glittering flurry of harmless flakes could become a blizzard in the blink of an eye, and the steely grey clouds beyond the window promised more snow. More snow, and here was Fairford, already half smothered in it as it was. It had begun snowing in early November, and had hardly let up for a single day since. Now the dratted flurries had found their way indoors. She tossed the coverlet aside with a sigh. If it had been any window, in any other bedchamber, in any other manor house, an indoor squall would have been shocking indeed. But at Hammond Court, the boundary between indoors and outdoors had grown increasingly indistinct as the golden days of autumn slid into the deep chill of winter. At least, that's how Ambrose would have put it. He'd always fancied himself something of a poet. It was one of the things she'd loved most about him. A hot ache pressed behind her eyelids, but she shook off the tears that threatened with an impatient jerk of her head. He wouldn't have wanted her tears and mournful sighs. Why, if he could see her now, he'd scold until her ears burned. Anyway, when had snivelling ever helped anything? She rolled out of bed, snatched up the coverlet and wrapped it around her shoulders, then skidded over the wooden floorboards in her stockinged feet to inspect the snowdrift gathering under her window. Or puddle, rather. A large puddle. It had been snowing for some time then, likely most of the night. She jerked the worn draperies aside to get a better look at the damage to the glass. It was early still, the grey light too weak to dispel the shadows lingering in the corners of the bedchamber, but there was no missing the fracture splitting one of the upper panes. Well, that explained the menacing crack that had woken her last night. It hadn't been a ghost after all, then. That was some comfort, at least. Not that she believed in ghosts, of course. She wasn't such a fool as that. But in the deepest dark of the night, with the house creaking and moaning around her, it had occurred to her that if there was ever a man who'd find a way to walk amongst the undead, it was Ambrose. Yes, he'd take great delight in haunting her, the scoundrel. She edged closer to the window, careful to avoid the puddle, and squinted at the crack in the gloomy light.